She screamed, "You're a worthless loser," in front of her friends. I said, "You know what? You're right." Then I stopped being her loser. What her friends told her after I walked out changed everything. Dude, I'm 34, and until 6 months ago, I thought I'd finally figure my life out. Good job, steady income, small apartment that actually feels like mine, and a fiancée, Laura. We'd been together for almost 4 years. I met her at a mutual friend's housewarming, where she was talking about her graphic design freelance work and her plans to move somewhere creative, like Portland or Berlin. She was loud, charming, and everyone in the room seemed to orbit around her energy. Me? I've always been quieter. I work in data analytics, spreadsheets, reports, algorithms. Not the kind of thing that makes people's eyes light up at parties. Laura used to joke that she liked me because I made her feel grounded. I used to take that as a compliment. I don't anymore. It started with small things. Little digs that sound like jokes if you don't pay attention. When we went out with her friends, she'd say things like, "Oh, Matt doesn't get that stuff. He's a numbers guy." Or, "He's not the fun type, but he's reliable." They'd laugh. I'd smile. But every time, I felt something tighten in my chest, like she was drawing a line between her world and mine. I ignored it because she'd still cuddle up with me after, say things like, "You're my rock," and "I love that you're stable. I can count on you." It's funny how people can say, "I love you," and make it sound like they're pinning you to the ground at the same time. A few months ago, she started hanging out more with her friend group from an art collective, photographers, musicians, indie filmmakers. Whenever I joined them, I could feel it. I didn't fit. They'd talk about energy and creative alignment, and how corporate work kills the soul. One night after one of those meetups, she said, "Sometimes I wish you'd do something spontaneous. Just once. Like, surprise me." So I did. I planned a weekend trip. Nothing huge, just a cabin near the lake, a chance to disconnect. When I told her, she smiled politely and said, "That's sweet, but I already have a photo shoot that weekend." No apology. No, maybe we can reschedule. Just, she had better things to do. The breaking point came at a friend's birthday party, one of her friends, not mine. It was loud, neon lights, alcohol, everyone dancing and laughing. I was sitting at a corner table, talking with her friend's boyfriend about work stuff, normal conversation. Laura came over, slightly drunk, leaned down and whispered, "Can you stop talking about boring office stuff for 5 minutes?" I said, "Sorry, I didn't realize it bothered you." She rolled her eyes and walked away. An hour later, I tried to find her to say goodbye. She was in a circle of friends, music playing, everyone laughing. When I approached, one of her friends said jokingly, "Here comes the tax man." Everyone laughed. And then Laura, with that same half smile she used when she wanted to look like she wasn't being cruel, said loudly, "Yeah, my worthless loser boyfriend. He's addicted to spreadsheets." There was a second of silence before the laughter erupted again. I felt every bit of oxygen leave my body. I just stood there. She looked at me, maybe expecting me to laugh it off. Instead, I said quietly, "You know what? You're right." I grabbed my jacket and left. Walking out of that apartment, the city air hit me like cold water. I wasn't angry, not yet. I just felt empty. I replayed her words over and over. Worthless loser. The same woman who used to kiss me before I left for work, whispering, "You're my calm in the storm." By the time I got home, I'd already made a decision I didn't even know I was making. I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the couch, and started listing things in my head. Not hers, but mine. Everything I'd sacrificed. Every late-night project I'd helped her with. Every bill I'd quietly covered when she wasn't getting enough client payments. Every time I told myself that being steady and boring was somehow a flaw. That was the night I quit being her loser. The next morning, I sent her a simple message. "Take your time getting your things. I'll be out this weekend. Let me know when you're done." No long speech. No closure text. Just that. She didn't reply. But 2 days later, her best friend, Jen, texted me. "Matt, I think you should know what she said after you left." Jen's message sat there on my phone for a good 5 minutes before I opened it. I didn't want drama. I didn't want gossip. I just wanted silence. But curiosity, or maybe closure, got the better of me. Her message said, "After you left, Laura tried to laugh it off. But everyone just stared at her." Then Mia said, "That was way out of line. He's literally the reason you can afford half this lifestyle." Laura started crying and said she was drunk and didn't mean it, but People saw. People talked. I read that 3 times. I didn't reply. I just stared at my phone, the faint blue light reflecting off the coffee table. Somewhere between the lines, there was this quiet, sharp satisfaction. Not revenge, not even justice. Just the moment when you finally realize you're done explaining yourself to people who never wanted to understand. 2 days later, she texted me. Laura, hey, can we talk? Me, about what? Laura, the party. I was drunk. I said stupid things. Me, you didn't say anything you didn't mean. Laura, that's not fair. You know I love you. Please, can we talk in person? I didn't respond. Because the truth is, it was fair. Drunk words are sober thoughts, especially when they come out that cleanly, that confidently, in front of an audience. The week after that, she showed up at my apartment. I knew she would eventually. I heard her before I saw her, the sound of someone hesitating before knocking, that little shuffle of feet that means guilt is standing on the other side of the door. When I opened it, she looked smaller somehow. Her hair was messy, her eyes swollen, wearing one of my old hoodies like she wanted to remind me of who we used to be. Can we talk? She said softly. I stepped aside. She walked in and looked around. The apartment was spotless. Half of her stuff was already in boxes by the door. You already packed? She asked. I nodded. Figured it'd make things easier. She sat down on the couch, crossed her arms, and exhaled. I was drunk, she started. You already said that, I replied. No, I was trying to be funny. Everyone was joking. It came out wrong. You know how I get when I'm nervous. Laura, I interrupted. You called me a worthless loser. Not a bad joke. Not a slip. Worthless. You don't accidentally say that. She looked away. Her voice cracked a little. I felt like you were pulling away. You've been so quiet lately. I thought if I made a scene, maybe you'd react. There it was. The twisted logic of someone who equates chaos with connection. I said nothing. She kept talking about how she didn't mean it, how she was under pressure, how she was scared of being boring. Every word just sounded like background noise, like static from a radio station you've already tuned out. When she finished, I stood up, walked to the door, and said, Your stuff's by the boxes. Take whatever you want. The key's on the counter. I'll be staying with a friend for a few days. She blinked, like she was processing something she didn't believe could happen. Wait, that's it. I nodded. That's it. And then, for the first time since I'd met her, she didn't have anything to say. A few weeks passed. I didn't hear from her again, not directly, at least. But I started getting random messages from mutual friends. Little fragments like, Dude, Lara's been weird lately. Keeps saying she lost her best thing. She's telling people she didn't realize how much you did for her career. Apparently, she's trying to get into a new design firm, and they asked for references. You're one of them. That last one made me laugh out loud. I didn't respond to the recruiter's email. I didn't trash her name either. I just ignored it. That's the difference between moving on and seeking revenge. One ends the game. The other keeps playing it. 2 months later, Jen messaged me again. So, Laura had this big meltdown at a party last night. Someone mentioned your name. She said you ruined her life because now everyone sees her differently. People used to think she was this confident, funny girl, but now they see the mean side. I read it, smiled a little, and put my phone face down. I wasn't happy about it. Not exactly. It's hard to feel joy watching someone unravel, even if they once tore you apart. But it did make me realize something. Reputation has gravity. When you spend your time mocking people to look strong, it eventually pulls you down. Life got quieter after that. Work picked up. I started going to the gym again, picked up guitar lessons I'd always postponed. It wasn't about proving her wrong anymore. It was about proving me right. That I could be happy without needing someone to validate my existence. Then, one evening, while scrolling through my messages, I saw an unread text from Jen again. It was short. You might want to see this. She sent a screenshot, a group chat between Laura and her old friends. Laura was venting about how I was probably loving this, how I pretended to be calm but was actually manipulative, and how she regretted ever dating a guy who didn't fight back. And then Mia, the same friend who had called her out that night, replied, He didn't fight back because he didn't need to. He just walked away. That's what grown-ups do. I stared at that line for a long time. I realized I didn't hate Laura. I didn't even resent her anymore. I just didn't care. And that's the most powerful feeling in the world, the absence of anger. Update 1. It's been about 6 months since I last saw or spoke to Laura. A few people have messaged me asking how things turned out. So, here's the short version. No, we didn't get back together. No, I never taught her a lesson. Life just moved on. I spent the first few months focusing on work, therapy, and silence. It's strange how, after someone loud leaves your life, the quiet feels uncomfortable at first. You start noticing small things, like how the apartment sounds at night, or how you don't have to brace yourself for a sarcastic comment during dinner. But then the quiet turns peaceful, and then it becomes normal. A few weeks ago, I ran into Laura by accident. It was a Saturday morning, one of those gray, lazy ones where everyone looks half asleep. I was at a coffee shop with a coworker, nothing special, just talking about a new project. And then I saw her. She was sitting alone by the window, laptop open, headphones on. Her hair was shorter, she'd lost some weight. When our eyes met, she froze for a moment, that half second where your brain catches up to your emotions. Then she smiled, the kind of smile people wear when they're pretending they're fine. Matt, she said softly, you look good. I nodded. You too. For a second, we just stood there, two people who once shared everything and now had nothing left to say. I could tell she wanted to talk, maybe to apologize, maybe to reminisce, but I didn't let her. Not out of bitterness, just because there was nothing left to say. So I just said, take care, Laura, and walked out. As I stepped into the cold air, I realized something. Closure isn't about hearing the right words. It's about reaching the point where you no longer need them. I don't hate her. I don't even think about her much anymore. But sometimes, when I make coffee in the morning, I remember that version of me. The quiet one who thought being calm meant letting people disrespect him. I don't do that anymore. And honestly, it feels damn good. Final update that it's been a little over a year since everything happened. A full cycle of seasons, a few birthdays I didn't attend, and enough quiet mornings to realize just how small that old version of my life really was. When I wrote the first post, I was still raw, still half trying to make sense of how someone you love can look at you like you're disposable in front of an audience. Now, I just don't carry that weight anymore. It's not forgiveness, exactly. It's distance, and distance is its own kind of peace. A few months after that coffee shop run-in, I moved cities. Nothing dramatic, just a job transfer my company had been offering me for years. The old me would have turned it down out of consideration for Laura, her projects, her friends, her city. The new me didn't ask anyone for permission. I found an apartment in a quieter part of town, with big windows and a view of the skyline. Every morning, sunlight hits the kitchen counter around 7:15, and I make coffee while a playlist hums in the background, usually instrumental stuff. It sounds like nothing, but it feels like everything. I started running again, picked up guitar lessons, and for the first time in years, I started drawing, something I used to love as a kid but dropped when life got busy. Funny how we abandon the parts of ourselves that never actually demanded anything from us. A few months ago, I got promoted. It wasn't some huge cinematic moment. No applause, no champagne. Just my boss saying, "You've been steady for years. It's time you lead your own team." And that hit me. Because the same qualities Laura mocked, being calm, being predictable, being boring, those were exactly the traits that got me here. Consistency, not chaos, builds things that last. About Laura. She's still in the same city, from what I hear. We don't talk, but mutual friends mention her sometimes, mostly in passing. Apparently, she had a rough patch with her work. A few clients dropped her after she missed deadlines. No one's cruel about it. People just don't make excuses for her anymore. A mutual friend once said, she's still learning that charm isn't the same thing as character. I didn't respond, but that line stuck with me. I don't feel revenge or satisfaction, just understanding. When someone is constantly performing for attention, silence feels like death to them. But when you live quietly and truthfully, silence becomes home. Sometimes people ask if I'm dating again. The answer is yes, slowly. I met someone at work, not a whirlwind, not fireworks. Just steady warmth. We cook dinner together, argue about whose turn it is to wash the dishes, watch dumb documentaries, and go to bed before midnight. No grand gestures, no chaos, no feeling of constantly being evaluated. And that's the difference. With Laura, I was performing stability to make her feel grounded. Now, I just am stable, and she feels safe in it. I still think about that night at the party sometimes, not with anger, Just perspective. If Laura hadn't said those words, I probably would have stayed. I probably would have kept shrinking myself, confusing tolerance for love. That moment, that loud, humiliating, public moment, was the best, cruelest gift I ever got. Because when someone shows you how little they value you, you stop giving them the power to define your worth. Last weekend, I went to a friend's barbecue. A couple there started arguing quietly, not in a toxic way, just the kind of tension people have after years together. And I watched as the guy gently said, "Let's talk about it later, okay?" No shouting, no ego, just boundaries. That used to feel boring to me, too. Now it looks like love. I don't check her social media anymore. But a few weeks ago, one of my coworkers showed me a quote she'd posted. "Never lose the people who were patient with your chaos." I didn't say anything, just smiled. Because she's still writing captions. And I'm still writing chapters. If you've read this far, here's the truth I've learned in the past year. Peace doesn't come when everything's finally calm. It comes when you stop trying to control who you're calm with. Some people are storms pretending to be sunlight. And some of us are sunlight pretending we need storms to feel alive. I don't anymore. I don't know if this counts as a happy ending. It's not cinematic or viral or anything. It's just stable. A quiet apartment. A good job. A guitar leaning against the wall. Coffee at 7:15 every morning. And that's enough. More than enough, actually. Because when someone once called you a worthless loser in front of their friends, and a year later, you wake up genuinely content, that's not revenge. That's redemption.